Autistic Atheist, Autism and the Theory of Mind. The theory of mind refers to the ability to represent the mental states of others in our own minds. It allows us to predict how people around us are feeling and how they will behave in situations. The theory of mind is also what is used to attribute intent of actions to others. Without the theory of mind, it can often be difficult to predict the actions of those around us. This lack of theory of mind is what often inhibits autistic children from developing social relations with other children. The ability to recognize and attribute beliefs and feelings different from our own to other people is often referred to as mentalizing, and is common sense psychology. This is contrasted from simple perspective taking, which only requires us to see things or events from the point of view of someone else. Mentalization requires perspective taking, but perspective taking does not necessarily require mentalization. What is the theory of mind? Deficits in theory of mind are visible in autistic children, often from a very young age. Theory of mind refers to the ability to represent mental states of others in one's own mind. This mediates interactions between individuals. The theory of mind also allows us to attribute beliefs that are different from our own to others. Recognize that other people can hold beliefs different from our own, this knowledge which we do not have. It is this inability to attribute mental states to other people that many professionals in the field of autism believe restricts the ability of an autistic person to empathize with other people. It has created the idea that autistic children either lack empathy or have difficulty empathizing with others. A classic theory of mind test is for a small child to be presented with a crayon box that in fact contains something other than crayons. The child is asked, "What do you think is in the box?" After it is revealed that the box contains something other than crayons, the child is then asked, "What do you think someone else would think is in the box?" without any previous knowledge. If the child answers crayons, then they can account for another person's false belief due to limited knowledge of the situation. Rather, if the child answers with what was in fact in the box, then it shows that the child is unable to correctly represent the false beliefs of someone else. Very early work on theory of mind led to the conclusions that children begin to develop a theory of mind at the age of 3 to 5. This test showed that young children had a hard time presenting their previous state of mind as well as representing the false beliefs of another person. The young children were reluctant to apply different representations to the same object and did not understand there could be different ways to represent the same situation. Autistic and Atheist proposed that the young children had difficulty recognizing that another person may perceive the world differently from how they do. Therefore, they had trouble representing others' representations of the world in their own heads. The 3-year-olds in the experiment had difficulty representing change and simply appeared to behave as if their present representation of an object was always how they saw it. They were unable to connect their present selves with their past selves. After the age of 5, the children were able to answer correctly to the problem. Autistic and Atheist concluded that the 5-year-olds were able to understand that two people could have different representations of the same object. It is the ability to fathom different representations of the same object which allows a child to hold representations of different minds in their own mind. A study conducted by Wimmer and Perner in 1983 aimed to investigate whether young children could understand and represent the mental states of others, particularly in scenarios involving false beliefs and deception. They used a simple narrative involving a character named Maxie and a piece of chocolate to test the ability in children of different age groups. In the first scenario, the children were introduced to the character Maxie. Maxie left a piece of chocolate in the cupboard and went outside to play. While Maxie was out, his mother moved the chocolate to a different cupboard. Maxie returns from playing hungry and looks for the chocolate. After watching this skit, the children were asked where they thought Maxie would look for the chocolate. 3 to 4-year-olds in the group had incorrectly answered that Maxie would look for the chocolate in the cupboard that his mom had placed it in, while the 6 to 9-year-olds correctly pointed at the box where Maxie had originally placed the chocolate. From this, Wimmer and Perner concluded were unable to ascribe wrong belief to the character. To determine if the small children could construct a deceitful utterance, the experiment introduced another character who was looking for the chocolate. After Maxie came back from the park, it is explained that Maxie does not want the other character to know where the chocolate is. The children are asked to determine where Maxie would point in order to deceive the character in question. Again, the younger children showed difficulty in constructing deceitful utterances by consistently pointing to the box where Maxie had left the chocolate rather than where Maxie perceived the chocolate to not be. These tasks required the children to construct 2 different models of the hypothetical worlds and to empathize with the character in question. In both cases, the younger children showed great difficulty in representing the mental states and the intents of others. By age 6, the children showed no difficulty representing the 2 different models. In 1985, Baron Cohen and colleagues adapted the first test from Wimmer and Perner to test the hypothesis that autistic children lack a theory of mind. If the children could pass the test, then that they possessed a theory of mind. He proposed a hypothetical situation illustrated by puppets to both autistic and non-autistic children. The children watched a short skit with puppets named Sally and Susie. Sally placed a marble in a box and left the room. Without Sally knowing, Susie moved the marble and placed it in her pocket. The children were asked where they thought Sally would look for the marble when she came back. The autistic children often did not guess that Sally would look for the marble in the box where she had left it. Baron Cohen and colleagues concluded that autistic children were unable to represent the false belief of Sally. They were unable to represent the false belief of a person different from themselves. The non-autistic children, on the other hand, correctly guessed that Sally would look for the ball in the box she last left it in. And Baron Cohen concluded that these children were able to properly represent the mental states of the doll in question. Baron Cohen and colleagues also included a group of Down syndrome children with moderate intellectual disabilities. Down syndrome children also answered the question correctly. The fact that the children with intellectual disabilities answered correctly over the autistic children with IQ scores in the average range indicated that the ability to represent false beliefs was not dependent on IQ. From studies like this, Baron, Cohen, and colleagues have concluded that autistic children have a deficit in the understanding of the social world, while their understanding of the physical world remains intact. This points to specific cognitive deficits as to impairments in social abilities. The theory of mind allows us to immediately put ourselves in someone else's shoes, and without this ability, it is difficult for many people on the autism spectrum to empathize with others. The ability to empathize with others is often an automatic response which involves our brain reacting to other people's actions and constructing an appropriate emotional response. In a follow-up study of the famous doll sketch, the same group of children were subjected to another series of tasks which was meant to gauge their understanding of both the physical and social world. Children were asked to place pictures of a sequence of events in order of their occurrence. The order would imply either the intentions of others' actions on someone or a sequence of events which would involve characters interacting with purely physical objects. In the case of the intentional arrangement, the autistic children did significantly poorer than both the typical set and the Down syndrome set. They were consequently less able to attribute intentions to the characters in a pictorial sequence. The autistic children in the study were unable to arrange the pictures in the correct order. The autistic children in the study also used fewer intention words to describe the sequence than other children for both the main and secondary characters in the story. In contrast, the non-autistic children were more able to describe events and actions in terms of underlying desires rather than physical behaviors. Baron, Cohen, and colleagues concluded that even though the autistic children in the study were of similar intellect and mental age as the non-autistic children, and in some cases higher, they still possessed a deficit when it came to assigning intentions to others and hence completing the sequence that involved intent and belief over ones that did not. It is from studies like this which many researchers of autism have concluded that autistic children possess a deficit in the understanding of the social world, which Baron Cohen perceived as a lack of theory of mind and called mind blindness. In a 1995 study, Fry and colleagues suggested that the ability to understand the different mental states of other people is a consequence of a change in a child's ability to reason about the minds of others, which eventually becomes automatic. The theory of mind emerges from a child's ability to understand embedded rules and to resolve conflicts of judgment. In addition to understanding theory of mind rules, the theory of mind, embedded rules are also required to understand causal reasoning and sorting tasks with many rules. Young children were asked to sort cards into categories and to predict the path a marble would take down a slide. 3-year-olds in the study were less able to sort cards by more than 2 categories and more frequently incorrectly predicted the path of the marble when it took a diagonal path as opposed to a direct path. The probability of passing these 2 tests was correlated with the probability of passing the theory of mind false belief test. The young children could reason using simple conditionals, but were unable to reason using more complex rules. The difficulty associated with shifting across dimensions correlated with the difficulty of young children to shift across different perspectives of people other than themselves. The embedded rules that come with the theory of mind are that beliefs can be false and that people are able to hold different perspectives on beliefs from me. The use of embedded reasoning permits the switching of the brain between conflicting representations. Fry and colleagues concluded that the 3-year-olds in the test were unable to reason with embedded rules and hence were not able to switch between conditions to make a conflicting judgment. The ability to reason using embedded rules may in fact be related to executive functioning, and executive functioning may consequently play a role in one's ability to represent the different mental states of others within their own brains. This may also imply that someone may be able to acquire a conscious theory of mind in time by understanding sets of embedded rules involved in the intentions of others. The ability to hold these rules within one's head and apply them to multiple situations stems from one's executive functioning abilities.